My obsession with Bratz began when I was 8 years old and I was gifted one for my birthday. So Bratz are dolls, kind of like Barbies, but better. They didn't have these unrealistic dimensions. Instead, they stood about 10 inches tall with these huge heads, full lips, curvy physique, and they had the coolest makeup. And also, they had these glittery punk rock boots that I loved. I knew I was hooked, and I wanted more, but I could not ask my mom for more because we were homeless. We had been homeless for over a year, and she had bigger worries, like if she had enough money for train fare or food, what borough we would end up sleeping in, and if I had clean uniform for school. So I knew that if I wanted these dolls, I would have to get them myself. So in the shelter, I started selling paper fans that I made and decorated to the guards for 75 cents. And they would give me more money because they saw I was hustling. And I would take that money and I would buy pens, pencils, loose leaf, and candy and sell it to the kids at school for a markup price, which I was good at. And I also braided hair in the shelter. And when I saved up enough money, my mom took me to the big toy store on Times Square. When I arrived, I ran straight to the Bratz section, searching the shelves for Sasha. Sasha was the Bratz doll that I really wanted. I had read about her in a pamphlet from the previous doll I had got, and she was this aspiring businesswoman, and she just seemed the coolest, and I wanted her. And after searching and scanning the shelves and not seeing her, I asked the sales rep if he had any more in the back. And he said, "Sorry, kid, she's popular, high in demand, all sold out." And that day, I left with Jade. I was disappointed, but I was still happy to leave with a Bratz doll. It had been over a year of living in the EAU, which was short for the Emergency Assistant Unit. And me and my mother had been waiting for overnight placement, and it was Christmas Eve. And I was sitting there, and it was children screaming and making noise, and I was tired. I was hungry. I had been there since 8 a.m., and it was now going on 8 p.m. And just as I was about to turn to complain, they called us to the triage window for our placement. And as we approached the window, it's this thick glass in between my mother and me and the worker. And it kind of reminded me of like a check cashing place or like quarantine, and like we were kept away from all things clean. And once we received our overnight placement, we went back to sit down, and then I heard this uproar, like this cheering, this chanting from the kids in the rooms next door. So I peeked my head out the doorway to see what was going on, like what was the fuss about, and I saw the guards dragging these clear plastic bags down the hall. And then I realized that we were gonna get donated toys, that it was Christmas Eve. I had almost forgot. See, I had been here already. I've been here last Christmas, and I knew how things went. We will all be in one room, called one by one to receive a toy. So as the guards are dragging the bags, I notice, as clear as day, untouched, unwrapped, a Bratz doll. And I knew I just had to have it. But I honestly felt like I deserved it. I had all A's and B's in school. I stayed out of trouble. I even helped my mom fold clothes at the laundromat. So I knew I had to be first in line. And when the guards came to my room, I jumped up, and they said, "Step right up." And I dived, digging through those bags. You weren't even allowed to do that. See, you were supposed to just step up, get one toy, and keep it pushing. But these were the same guards that would buy my paper fans, and they were cool enough to let me search. And as I'm going through the third bag, I'm digging, and I feel the outline of that Bratz doll. That box, I feel it, and I pick it up, and there she was, Sasha. I held her up like they did Simba in The Lion King. And tears of joy ran down my cheeks. Sasha was wearing this ice blue princess gown with the tiara to match. She looked magical, like Whitney Houston when she starred in that Cinderella movie. Brandy when she starred in that Cinderella movie featuring Whitney Houston. And I just felt like I had met a celebrity, like I was starstruck, like I met Tyra Banks or Raven Simone. Sasha was beautiful. She was black, and I was black. She was gorgeous. She had this long, dark brown hair, and her clothes were the best out of all the Bratz. And in the pamphlet that she came with, they told me things about her, like how she wanted her own urban clothing line, how she wanted to be a music producer. She had 2 parents and her own room, and she just seemed like she had it all, and I wanted that. I had this carry case where I could keep only one Bratz doll in, and I always chose to put Sasha in it. Inside, it was blue velvet and a spot just for Sasha, and on the other side was her wardrobe where I kept all her clothes neatly stacked. It was like her room, and sometimes I would pretend that it was my room. And for a second, I felt like the other 3rd graders in my class. I have a room and a closet full of clothes. It was me and Sasha's world. It had been nearly 2 years of staying in the EAU, 2 years of waiting, 2 years of being denied permanent housing, and I was tired. And I was tired. Finally, we were moving to a semi-permanent placement called the Ellerton. Inside of the Ellerton, I had 1 room, and it had a bunk bed, a half-top stove, a mini fridge, a dresser, and a bathroom. A lot of the times I sat in the hallway and I would play with other kids, but most of the times I played alone with my dolls. And next door lived this girl, and she always wanted to play with me and my Bratz dolls, but I didn't let her because I saw how she treated her toys, and I didn't need her messing up my girls. One day, I came home after school, and I immediately run to the dresser where I keep my dolls. And as I'm approaching the dresser, I noticed that they were all gone. Sasha was gone, my Bratz were gone. I began to panic. I felt like someone had stabbed me in the chest, like pins and needles all throughout my body. And me and my mom searched the room looking for the dolls, and I didn't know what to do, so I grabbed her phone. And I dialed 911. I said, hurry, come quick, we've been robbed. They took everything, 110th Morningside. After I hung up, my mom's looking at me in disbelief, like, did you just call the cops? But in my head, I'm like, these are my girls, they're missing, like, where's the Amber Alert? When the officers arrived, I just was standing there, eyes bloodshot red, t-shirt soaking wet, nose dripping, and I said it was her. I knew she took my Bratz doll. It was the girl next door. So they started the investigation. They knocked on the door, and they questioned her. And she said no, that she didn't have my dolls, but I knew she had my dolls. They said we couldn't help me any further because they didn't have a warrant to search, and one of the officers bent over and said, I'm sure they'll turn up. They're just dolls. Just dolls, like, they were more than just dolls to me. They were my family, like, especially Sasha. She was my road dog, my ride or die, my best friend. She was the first to know about my crush on Adolphus Butts in the 3rd grade and how he looked like milk chocolate. She also was there with me that night where I slept in my coat and my shoes and this nasty blood-stained motel, and I held her tight the whole night. She was also there when I wanted to jump into bed with my mom, but there wasn't enough space, and I would hold on to her. That night, before bed, I was at the top bunk, and I just kept looking at the dresser, and it was empty, and I felt empty. I went to bed with my pillow wet, and I woke up with my pillow wet. And my mom asked me what I wanted for breakfast, but I didn't have an appetite. Instead, I sat in the hallway almost all day in between my door and her door, waiting for her to come out, waiting to just see if she had my girls in there. Later that night, I got a knock on the door. And there she was, standing there with an attitude, with a plastic bag full of my Bratz dolls. I didn't even have the energy to say anything. I just grabbed the bag and slammed the door and started to spill them on the bed and examine them. And they looked like they had been through something awful. They were all undressed and they smelled like chicken grease. So I started to dress them and clothe them and put them back on that dresser. And as I was doing so, I was holding Sasha, and I realized that when they were gone, that was the first time I actually really felt homeless. And having them back, I felt like whole again. And that's when I realized that Sasha was there for me. These dolls were there for me. For everyone, everyone has someone or something that may get them through the day or even a year. And for me, for 9-year-old me, it was Sasha. It was this black, plastic, professional businesswoman who doubled as a superstar in my eyes. And she was a constant reminder that in a world filled with uncertainty, there could be a happily ever after. Thank you.